By thanking NASMA and EdMaps for inviting me here today. I'm going to be talking today about Invasive Free USA. But first, I'm going to discourage you a little bit. No money for surveys. We want to do an invasive plant project, but current resources are lacking. Money's going towards something else. Nobody's listening to my requests for prevention projects, so we're just going to can that and just hope for the best. And we know that there's problems, and if we take care of them now, it won't cost very much in the future, but we just don't have $1,000, so we can't do anything about it. Oh, that on-the-ground control project looks promising, but it's not going to happen right now. It's just not practical. Restoration, no budget. Monitoring, maintenance, forget about it. We haven't even started the project yet. There's a lot of reasons why I think people try to get discouraged in this industry, in any part of life, right? It's been a tough year for everyone. We always have to find something to encourage us to do better. Well, I'm here to tell you that we don't have to be discouraged in this industry. When I drive down the street in the Warner Parks here in Nashville, Tennessee, which I'll use as an example a lot today, and I look to my left or I look to my right, in many parts of the park, all I can see are what I call a high-intensity level 5 infestation of Chinese privet, bush honeysuckle, euonymus, vinca major, vinca minor, Japanese stiltgrass, English ivy. It's all there. And you look at it, especially this time of year when the invasives are green and everything else is still dormant. And it can be discouraging. You look at it and you think it's never ending. So I look at that picture on the left, and that's kind of what I see from the road or the trail. But if I take an overhead image, if we fly the drone and we take some photographs of the park, and I look at this area, let's just say that's 150 acres, I can see the road kind of positioned down through here that I was just driving through on the left. And I see the green around there, and this is taken, oh gosh, about a week ago. So a lot of the invasives are green and nothing else is. So what we see that's green are invasive plants. The other things are relatively clean forest right now. Really beautiful overstory, a lot of hardwoods in this forest. So I can be discouraged if I take the road on the left, or I can be encouraged if I just look at it a different way. If I take a view overhead and I can really see that, I see that maybe half the forest has a problem right there that we need to deal with immediately. The other half, we need to do the prevention. We need to watch out for. So I guess the conclusion I've come to when I hear all those discouraging questions is not, I can't do it, what am I going to do about it? It's more, what do you want me to do about it? Give me the tools, show me the resources. So how do we answer these discouraging questions? Well, my first thought is we shouldn't be having so much trouble with this. We have been controlling weeds since the first person was on this planet. Okay, we had to eat, we had to control the weeds that were encroaching upon our crops. One of the oldest professions around. I don't know why we're still asking, how do we do this? We have all kinds of options from the past. We have all kinds of options now. We have things that are coming up in the future. We have many more tools than we used to. You know, it used to be hand pulling, using mattocks, knives, hoes. I think the biggest difference between then and now is that most everyone was involved in the industry back then. If you had a child, that child was working out there pulling weeds. If you had, you know, whether it's wives, husbands, just anyone that was out working, oftentimes this is part of what they were doing. At least it was part of their daily routine. Now it's not the same. We go to the grocery store, we expect to have groceries. We don't think about how they got there. We don't think about the weeds that were controlled in getting them. And I think you take that to a natural area and it even becomes more complicated because it's certainly not highest on the priority list for many people. But of course, with time, we've had modern technology. We have chemical control now. But we also have a lot more mouths to feed than we used to. So the agricultural sides become different in a lot of ways. Herbicides were introduced. Lots of different methods are out there. Obviously, through time, things come and go. Some of the chemicals we like the best, they weren't that good for the environment, so they're gone. Now we see chemicals that work well, they're questioned again, and we have to wonder what's next with that as well. So while there's always obstacles, there's always ways that we can think, what can we do about it? So why are we still having to convince people that what we do is important? Well, I think one thing that makes it so hard is that, again, it's not the industry they're in anymore. So most people really aren't thinking about invasive plants in forests. They're thinking, this is my weekend, I'm going to take a hike. And oh, look at that pretty flower or that green plant. They don't realize that those might be highly invasive and displacing the native plants that are there. I pulled this picture out of a magazine, a co-op magazine. They like to look back in time at some old issues. And this was from a long time ago. They had this in there as, oh my gosh, look, we're going to have robots that can fly over crops and can spray weeds. You know, it seemed far-fetched back then, but of course now, courtesy of Rob Richardson and Andrew Howe from North Carolina State University, we can see that, well, it's the case, isn't it? So what we thought was impossible or just a dream isn't a dream anymore. Here we have a drone flying over barberry, I believe that's barberry, spraying it to the best of its ability. So options are there. What are we going to do about it? How do we reach those outside the industry, locally, regionally, and globally? It's really important that we reach out to people now that are no longer in our industry. This is kind of how we do it right now. We have some nice scientific articles. Every once in a while, we'll see a newspaper article that I think is a little better, reaches the general public a little bit better, but this is kind of what we're going at right now. And we need to really figure out a way, and I've been saying this for years, how do we make something like this sound interesting to the general public? What's missing in the natural area is weed management industry. And you're going to see that I include a lot of why, what, hows in this presentation, because these are all the simple questions we need to be answering. Well, what's missing is the general public. We've done an excellent job over the years teaching current and future botanists, foresters, environmental scientists, etc. And I welcome every one of you that are on this presentation today, because I think we're all an integral part of what we're doing right now. But we haven't done such a great job reaching out to the other segments of the population. And I welcome those folks here too. I hope there's a lot of students here. I hope there's people that are just retail workers. I hope there's people that work at the gas station or doctors or lawyers or whatever you might be. Because we need to teach you what we already know. If we want this to be a success, we have to find out why everybody else cares about invasive plants and let them know about it. So it's not the botanists and the foresters completely. Certainly, we all need to be taught. We all have a lot to learn. But we need to find out why it can be important to everybody else. And then we need to tell them about it. And then what do we need to do? We need to tell them what they can do about it. So part of that process for us has been developing these regional, national, and global initiatives. I'm going to talk about a few of them today as examples: the predator-free New Zealand, working for water in Africa, and the weed wrangle, which this is a national logo, but it's throughout the United States now. And ultimately how Invasive Free USA is a concept that's being born out of these types of events and these types of projects. So let's define the invasive free concept really quickly, and then I'm going to get into the examples. Invasive Free USA can mean a lot of things. And by the way, it's not just Invasive Free USA. It might be Invasive Free Tennessee, or Invasive Free at the Tennessee State Parks, or it might be Invasive Free Maryland, whatever you want to call it. It might be Invasive Free with the neighborhood group name on there, or it might be a local school, Invasive Free at the Covenant Elementary School. At the Warner Parks here in Nashville, it's the entire 2,700 plus acres in the park and all the plant species considered invasive. It's a big project here. But in a neighborhood association, it might just be 1, 2, 3 species, and they group up as a neighborhood and say, we're going to control these species by a certain date. For some, it may be a 50-year goal like New Zealand, and for others, it might be a 7-year goal. Warner Parks is a 7-year goal for 2,700 acres. It can be a citywide effort or a backyard effort. It can be a nationwide effort or focused on just one island in the world. So why? You know, I think if we can answer that why question, we can get a lot more people involved in their invasive free project. Why are you in the business? Well, let's look at it. Why do we have certain projects that are considered control of invasive species? Let's start with the Working for Water program out of Africa. This is a great program. It employs mechanical methods, chemical, biological, integrated control. It was conceived in 1995 and has controlled millions of acres of land of invasive alien plants on many, many lands and employed a lot of people. Now, the first thing you think is that's great for the environment, but I think one of the best things about the Working for Water program is that it's not just about, the core is not just about sustainable use and conservation. It's also about reducing poverty, providing employment and development skills through various technical and life skills training. It's actually bringing a whole nother idea into the concept of invasive plants. It's providing clean water for people that don't have clean water. And that's a really good why. It's a really good why we want to control invasive species. So all these concepts from around the world, we need to be working together. We need to be seeing how we can make these things work in the United States. How can I make this work in Nashville, Tennessee? I know there's a lot of poverty here. We might not see it. It might not be as obvious, but it's here. And how can we use the invasive plant programs, invasive species programs, to help there and actually help build skills and actually do things that are good other than just doing it for environmental reasons? Predator Free New Zealand is a fantastic program. I've had the privilege of visiting with them and seeing some of the work they do over the last few years. Their goal, it's ambitious, but it's to rid New Zealand of the most damaging introduced predators that threaten the nation's natural environment. Why do they do it? Here's their why. Because many of their species that they have are found nowhere else in the world. You can see some of the statistics there. You can see the state of their native species. There's some trouble, and they knew they needed to do something about it. So they became ambitious. They didn't just say, oh gosh, I'm disappointed, I don't know if we'll ever get this done. They said, well, what can we do about it? And then they took it on and they created Predator Free New Zealand. And now they've got a wonderful program. And they're eradicating some of New Zealand's most damaging predators. You see the rats, stoats, possums. And it's not just the botanists and the biologists and the foresters and the environmental scientists that are doing the work. It's the general public. It's school children. It's programs that are out there that we have in the United States. We have them all over this country. We have tool lending programs like this toolkit they have. We have a barn full of tools here that anyone in Nashville can come over and borrow tools to work in their own property. We can teach the school groups because we've created educational material. It's been 20 some years since this industry's really gotten the big boost in 1998 from the executive order that was signed. We have a lot of the things we need. We just need to utilize them and share them and partner with the people that are around us, just like New Zealand, you can see they're doing. So their why is a little bit different. Their why is to help with the environment, protect endangered species. One thing that I remember 25 years ago, Randy Westbrooks and others talking about was how important partnerships were, sharing of resources, in a big part because it eliminates boundaries that plants ignore or other species ignore. So my next example, we've talked about Africa, we've talked about poverty and how that's a good why. We've talked about creating jobs, clean water, we've talked about protecting the environment. Well, Garden Club of America is another wonderful example of an organization that's gotten involved in the invasive species effort. And their why? Well, first, let's just look at the map of where their clubs are. They have garden clubs throughout the United States. You can see a high dose of them on the East Coast. They're a fantastic organization. When they say they're going to do something, they generally do it, and they do it really well. And when they adopted the idea of educating the public and teaching them about invasive plants, they did a really good job of it. They created something called Weed Wrangle, and that Weed Wrangle's really exploded over the last few years. So their why was to educate and teach. Talk about partnerships. I mean, I could put page after page of logos of partners we have in the Weed Wrangle event. I like to look back in time sometimes to see how we've progressed. When I hear people complain or consider that they're having a hard time or they're discouraged, I remember back when the Pulling Together initiative was around, you could really look at their projects and see kind of the distribution of where things were happening with invasive species management in the United States. At least that's how I looked at it. And when I see this, and you can see the projects from 97 to 99, you can see it's very heavily to the left. It's the West Coast. And certainly it's wonderful that they had it there. But I remember, because we were applying for projects back then, it was hard to get funded for things on the East Coast. And you can see there wasn't a lot going on based on a map like this. I want you to think back to the map I just showed you of the Garden Club of America, certainly they have the opposite here. And they've utilized that. They've utilized that, the skills that they have. And now when you look at these flags, you can see all the states that the Garden Club of America has gotten weed wrangles going in. So they've actually really encouraged their garden clubs to get involved. The garden clubs get the communities involved. Communities really spread the reach amongst a much broader array of people outside of the scientific industry, outside of botany, outside of biology. And you can see we've covered a lot more states now. There's not a lot of in the West yet, but it has more to do with the fact that we're so busy getting things going on the East Coast, we haven't had time to push the weed wrangles in the West. There's a lot of great programs in the Midwest to the West already. So when we really start to put all these things together, I think the progress is going to be wonderful, and the discouragement will probably end some for a lot of people. So this is all about, for the weed wrangle, it's all about partnerships. It's all about creating these partnerships so that we can educate people about invasive plants and the types of plants that we would rather have out there. And it's really been a wonderful thing. Over this last year, they've created the stay-at-home weed wrangle, which is obviously very important. Oftentimes we'll clean a park of invasive plants, but the next door neighbor won't do anything about theirs. Well, here's a great educational opportunity. Just using Tennessee as an example, you can see how the spread of weed wrangles across the state has really covered the state for us and created educational opportunities throughout the state of Tennessee, just through this one type of an event. School groups, retail industry, everybody comes out for these things. Look at Indiana. Don Slack out there has been doing a wonderful job putting together SISMAs, cooperative invasive species management areas, and part of that has also been these weed wrangles. They've had approximately 40 in 2020, and they're really spread out across the state as well. So just two examples, two states on the East Coast, but you can see the spread of just one type of an event. And add everything else that's going on, and we can see that I think this slide I showed you earlier of what I think we've been showing the public and trying to teach them through, I think we're kind of putting that to the side. People still have this information, but they also have other information that tells them why they want to do something. And the general public's why is a lot different than yours and mine. So here's kind of a map of when we host conferences, the current invasive species industry event participants. So if I have a conference for innovations in December, I'm going to have a lot of naturalists, botanists, resource managers, environmental scientists, you name it, that come to the conference. Garden Club of America has this type of member demographics. This is just an example from one group. Professors, stockbrokers, school receptionists, farmers, floral designers, retired folks, hedge fund managers, authors, bankers, travel agents. You can see the list there. It's just a wide array in their demographics that reach a lot more people than the typical conference would. So the weed wrangles through the garden club groups attract the same type of folks. And here's just an example from 2020, some of the weed wrangle volunteers. Finance industry, medical industry, insurance industry, participants from everywhere, including a lot of college and high school students and grade school students, reaching that younger generation. Even the retail industry, the Disney store sent its entire staff out to the first weed wrangle we held at the Nashville Zoo. So all that to say, there's a lot of reasons why people want to control invasive plants. From education, we want to teach, to really helping us have a sustainable place to live, to actually working on the environment and protecting what we have, creating jobs. You know, I've named several different ones in those examples. And that kind of brings us back to invasive free concept. And I'm going to give the example of invasive free at the Warner Parks. So, you know, it's invasive free at the WP. And their goal, it's a 7-year challenge. Their 100-year anniversary of the park will be 7 years from the day they started this challenge. And their goal is to complete initial control of all the invasive plants in this park, more than 2,700 acres, by 2027. And believe it or not, it's a very doable task as long as we have everybody engaged and we ride with the momentum, because they have the tools. They have what they need. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that, because if we have the tools, the rest of us in this country have the tools as well, or around the world for that matter. We just have to share and partner to utilize them. So why at the Warner Parks are they doing it? Well, the Friends of Warner Park and Jenny Hannon and the rest of the group there, Paul Fowler, they're doing a wonderful job teaching over the years, doing volunteer projects. This is a picture that Bob Parrish showed us from, gosh, I think the 1970s of one of the main corridors next to the park. And it's full of redbud trees in the spring. Now, if you go down the same corridor in the spring, you see bush honeysuckle and Chinese privet, and maybe some multiflora rose, probably a little bit of autumn olive, just a little arboretum of invasive plants. So they've displaced the native redbuds. It's just one of the reasons they want to control the invasive plants there. Why at the Warner Parks are they doing it? Why do they have an invasive free project? Well, here's a before and after, where the control work was on the right. You can obviously see on the left, the control work has not been done yet. There's a very obvious difference. It's very clear to us. It's very clear to the people that utilize the park. Here's some before and after work that was done just this year up at the Ale area. So how are they doing it? Well, there's so many tools available, and they're actually making use of them. They're not afraid to ask for funding. They're not afraid to go outside their comfort zone to ask for funding, to look for the resources that they need. We've had local companies like Thompson Machinery, which is a Caterpillar group, donate mulching machines for us to use. We've had other groups donate equipment. We've had our partnership with them allows donated time, but they also find resources so they can get out there and do things. We're able to purchase a drone so we can do mapping there, and we can really zoom in on where the problems are. This is just part of the park, the Birch Reserve that they just purchased a few years ago. And you can see, again, this was done in the fall in December. You can see the green streaks in there where the invasive plants are. So from the trail, it might look never ending, but when you look overhead, it's very manageable. We're able to create a budget. We're able to go out to donors and different groups to see if we can fund projects like this and just stay on it until we do. A little close up of the same photography shows the bush honeysuckle that's down in there. They also have a wonderful volunteer program there at the Warner Parks, and about 2,500, I would guess more hours per year. And it encompasses about 20% of their annual volunteer programming. So we have a great way to work in the future for maintenance and prevention, as volunteers add a great hand to that part of the project. So their invasive free program also is taking into consideration replanting with natives where necessary. If we clear that one alley where the redbuds used to be, we'll come back to the local native plant group and we'll get some native redbuds and put them back in there. We've restored native prairies. We've taken out old fields of fescue. We've reseeded with native grasses. We've utilized mechanical, chemical, every type of integrated pest management tool you can think of. So invasive free at the Warner Parks is really good at using as many tools as you can to get the job done well. Whether it's weed wrenches, uprooters, it's all about stressing selectivity. We teach all the volunteers, whether they're from that Disney store or they're a local teacher, librarian, they learn what sumac is, they learn what ailanthus is. We make sure we're treating the right plants and keeping the good plants. If we have to be selective, we can. If we need to wait to treat something, we'll treat the invasive in the dormant season for the native plants. And we really stress prevention. And this picture is from Rock Creek Park in DC. That's stilt grass that's seeding on their mower deck. This is an old picture. I don't think it's that way anymore, but just as an example of simple things we can do, like cleaning a mower deck to keep seeds out. We're trying to do that here with prevention methods. We're also introducing new things and trying to teach people just by bringing them to look at new things that they never really thought of. This is an area where we did some cutting and treating before and after work. This is some of the donated equipment we used. So we mulched the edges that were predominantly Chinese privet, and we'll come back in afterwards with other tools. This is another tool that some time was donated to demonstrate and work through some of the site here. Let's see if I've got. So that was a remote control mulching machine, and it's called the Green Climber. And you can see the difference that it makes along an edge. It takes Saves a lot of time and money. And then we'll come back through there with other methods. In the fall and the spring, we're getting ready to treat this site. Again, you see how mulching machines don't actually kill the plant. They just cut them down and get rid of a lot of the mass. We can come back now and either foliar spray this with a 2% solution of chemical instead of a 25 to 50% solution you would with a cut stump treatment. So much less chemical, or we can try new methodologies, or we can use grazing. We're going to have the Nashville Chew Crew come in and use their sheep and their sheepdogs to graze through this area, hopefully a few times a year if everything works this year. Goats, sheep, whatever grazing methods are out there. We're also experimenting with thermal weed control. There's a lot of tools available. Like I said, when you ask the question, what can I do about it? Well, there's a lot available for us to do. We've purchased backpack torch kits that we're going to be working on some of the herbaceous species with before they seed. You can see some trials we just did last week up in the DC area for Fairfax County, Arlington County, a few other groups up there, Alexandria, National Arboretum. There's some really good tests going on. We're seeing what works, what doesn't, that's chemical free. You can see just from the results of the heat what happens to some of the English ivy after a few minutes. We're lucky that the foam stream people up in the area allowed us to utilize one of their tools to use this foam stream equipment, which is basically foam and hot water to treat invasive plants with. So we're going in and trying to get some of the species that are there and see how it works with foam stream. And see some of the immediate results. One of the things I like best about some of this chemical-free treatments is it actually allows, in high-use areas, it's a much better tool to use. You're not spraying chemicals. You're not scaring people with what you're using, even if it's unfounded. With the chemical-free options like hot water, you just have to be careful of the hot water. You can have children around, pets around, and not worry about it. One of our favorite tools is the heat weed technology, which we'll be using. We just purchased a unit from these folks, and they're going to be sending it to us and trying some of that. And I guess the biggest difference between heat weed and the foam stream is that they can really actively regulate their temperature a lot better, which creates a much better kill on a lot of different species. And certainly there are pieces of equipment you can use when it's just hot water and no foam. You can use it wherever you need to. Uprooter, wonderful company. Should look into some of their tools if you don't have them. We can use basal sprays. We can use backpack sprayers, cutting and treating. John Lamp with his equipment here doing some more focused cutting and treating with his green shoots tools. It's really been fun because with this project, the Invasive Free at the Warner Parks, we were getting companies coming out and wanting to try their equipment and show us how selective they are, show us how effective they are. And the more we get involved, the more success we're going to have. So just a few more before and after pictures of the Invasive Free at the Warner Parks project to show you that in just a couple years, a huge amount of progress has been made. Again, it's a lot of understory of multi-stemmed invasive plants that are now gone. And I'll just kind of highlight really quickly, they were able to hire a staff this year just for invasive species management, working through invasive plant control. This is the crew. Dylan Vine's the crew leader, and then you can see the team we have there. And they're making a dent in the park every day, and they will be now for hopefully at the minimum of 3 years. And this is all, again, part of the Invasive Free program. So to end this, I'm just going to say it again. What are we going to do about all this? Every one of you has your own properties you deal with, you manage, you hike on, however you're involved with that property. I want you to start thinking more about what you can do about the invasive plants there. The attitude needs to be not why haven't they given me funding, but instead, I don't have the funding. What am I going to do about it? I own some property with invasive plants encroaching upon it. What am I going to do about it? I work for a university. There isn't enough money to do research. Well, what are we going to do about this? You know, there's so many things that we can actually do something. We just have to find the right path. And you know, if you really don't know, call me, call somebody. Let's start talking about it. Let's figure out paths to success that we can find, because I think the answer are all the previous slides I showed you. We have the tools, we have the examples worldwide. that we can make this work. We just have to make it work. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of what's ahead with this summit. Just a few slides here to show you. Whoa, went by those really quickly, but you can see from the Western Weed Action Plan, University of Minnesota, there's a lot of folks that are going to be talking and then throughout the rest of today. And I know you're going to really enjoy it. And if you have any questions, certainly feel free to email me or give me a call at your convenience.